Yeah, so my name is Chris Smyth. I'm the co-founder of the Southern Ohio Chestnut Company, along with my partner.
My name is Badger Baldwin Johnson. I am the co-founder of the Southern Ohio Chestnut Company.
And we are also partnering with the Nature Preserve, the Woodcock Nature Preserve in Athens, Ohio. We started this work back in 2019.
And we are partnering for agroforestry. Agroforestry is the intentional, intensively managed integration of tree crops with at least one additional agricultural system to achieve what's called over-yielding.
I think agroforestry is a diverse, multi-programmatic thinking laid onto land. The Southern Ohio Chestnut Company, we're a multi-farm business, and it's Badger and I. We are the co-founders, which I think is a little unique to a lot of farm operations. It's not a family business, let's say. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. Badger lives in Athens, Ohio. So between us, there's a lot of Southern Ohio to be taking up with agroforestry. Chinese chestnuts is the main crop that we're growing. And the first farm that we built two so far, is about 20 acres, about 1,000 chestnut trees. And as far as, that first year in 2020 when we planted, after planning all through 2019 and before, we were focused on chestnuts and got those in the ground. It was in partnership with a nature preserve, the Woodcock Nature Preserve. We are on 25 of their 100 acres, a long-term lease, 75-year lease. So hopefully we'll be there long after. The chestnuts will be there long after we're gone. And that first year we just got chestnuts, and that's what we had time for. That's what we could do. And the next year we had another planting party. So that first year we had a community planting party. So we invited friends. Badger and I have done activism and education work for more than a couple decades in our local spheres. So we had about 50, 60 people come and plant chestnuts and tube them, and we installed irrigation. It was about a 5-week sprint for he and I, like 14-hour days, just getting ready for all of that. Big planting day in June, these like little baby trees. Just trying to keep them alive on some irrigation for that first year. But then as we've gone, now we've integrated pawpaw. So basically for every chestnut, there's a pawpaw. So 1,000 chestnuts, 1,000 pawpaw, that's the plan. We've started it's small right now, and we'll grow hopefully into a 5-acre garlic rotation. So we'll just kind of be doing this rotation with cover crops to garlic, and then out of cover crops to be the new understory of the orchard floor. And then we've also planted elderberry kind of in a separate section. And you could even think of this larger nature preserve as agroforestry itself. There's timber stand improvement going on. There's prairie burns happening on the property. It's quite a diverse property. And then there's, a third of it is this chestnut farm work. So that's the main crops. We haven't integrated any animals yet. Badger and I are kind of approaching this right now as a bit of weekend warrior work. The trees are young, they don't require daily attention. There's no harvest to speak of, they're only a couple years old. We aren't living on the site. This year we have an intern who's helping us mark some trees and do some other work, and we kind of see over time, as the trees require a little more attention, we'll start to integrate animals into the operation. For planting this farm initially, we didn't pay ourselves, we just took time off and just saved up. So it was probably about 30 grand we put into this farm, just day one. And a lot of that is leveraged from long-term favorable lease. We tapped into the water that was tapped into the house. But Badger and I basically just did back of the napkin kind of pro forma and budgets for the thing. And we just felt quite good about the long-term harvest, so that we knew we would be strategic and tactful about how we spent what we would spend. And we would find, we would get that money on the back end. So kind of bootstrapping, but choosing high quality materials like planter tubes, irrigating. And we have like a automated valve station that's Wi-Fi controlled that we worked on with a friend. So just high quality materials, but really scrapping it all together, which mostly we could do because Badger and I both have 10, 15 years experience in building and projects and, just like slowly acquiring those skills. So I think we leveraged that skill set to fill in a gap. Instead of, say, paying a designer to do this kind of stuff, I think we leveraged a lot of social capital that we had to do the planting. So the materials, that's not fully representative of the capital that went into the thing. If you look at the ROI on what we put in materially, it's going to be great over the long term. Because we're here talking about partnering in agroforestry. I'll say that I think one of the biggest things you can do when looking at a new partnership is analysis. I was talking before about identifying various forms of capital and then how do those, transfer. But really, it is about discerning the equity between partners and really being clear about that. The nature preserve that we're working for, I know what they're capable of and where they're going to go. I've seen other landowners kick people off farms and they're not going to do that. I don't know. Like, we can't know these things. It's highly unlikely they will. So it's just, I think, about identifying what's likely and what's possible with the various partners. Say in Badger and I's relationship, Badger lives in Athens, 20 minutes from the farm. I live 3 hours away from the farm. So there's an inherent kind of double-edged sword to that that we have to be careful of, or else Badger could be there for every little thing. And if I just say bugger off to Hawaii, like, that would create this massive imbalance. So I kind of step into Athens and take extra trips and go the extra mile in that way. And then Badger also picks up things that like wouldn't make sense for me to drive 3 hours to like switch on a switch kind of stuff. So we need those kind of things, but every situation is going to be different with different partners. But identifying those imbalances and then putting systems in place to create health for everyone is, I would say, the goal.
People say, well, what do I do? Well, if you have a hobby farm and you are in the baby boomer generation and worked a job for 30 or 40 years, you probably have enough money to transition that land into a profitable agroforestry system and to fund to bankroll someone like Chris or I, who comes to you with a business plan. A lot of people who are in that position, who have cash and have the land, but they don't have the energy or the time in their life, or perhaps the vision for what to do with that land. People don't realize the barriers to entry for millennials and Generation Z folks starting out. I've heard it said that a good relationship, when you're dating or whatever, is one where both people feel like they're doing 60% of the work, because some of the work to come towards the other person is always going to be somewhat invisible. There is a significant power dynamic if one person's bringing the cash and and that same person has the land. And so you have to give either a lease on very favorable terms and have that notarized and registered with the county, so that you can't weasel your way out of it once the farm starts making money, or you have to do some kind of thing where you transfer interest in the land over time. For a lot of younger folks who bring the skill but don't have the capital, especially if they're moving from a different region and can't transfer their social capital as cleanly as Chris and I have done at our place, and you've been there, your family's been there for a long time, the young person is really at a disadvantage there. Is to take a working model from a farm that you can visit, who will let you see their books, who will talk to you about all the numbers, and you can either replicate that if market conditions are the same, that it still makes sense, or you can integrate aspects of that with other working models. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and that's what Chris and I did. We spent a year and a half writing business plans. There's a lot of things we didn't do that we talked about doing because it turned out it just didn't make sense.